Andrew Tate's Matrix. And is there a cabal of people running the show behind the scenes? And why should you care? We're going to talk about that today. All right, Paul. Then my new show is Elevate with me over at the Apex Mindset channel. We are going to talk about the Matrix today and the Andrew Tate's his concept of this. Now, I'm not, as you guys know, we have elevated discussions here, and I'm not here to just talk about people or to, you know, slam on people or anything like that. So if you thought this was going to be a hit piece on Andrew Tate or something, you're very much wrong. And I am going to give an opinion though, because I have friends of mine, people that I consider, really good people and good human beings who have worked with both him and his brother in different capacities, and they swear by their character. They say that they're good people. And so I'm going to listen to that, listen to what personal friends of mine who work with them have said, rather than listen to internet shitstorm media stuff. And as far as any allegations are concerned, it's been 6 months and I don't think any evidence yet has come out. So that should tell you a little something about that. And that's as far as my opinions go. All right. So I don't have a bad word to say about those guys. But let's talk about the Matrix, though. I don't even have do I have a bad word to say about the Matrix? Not necessarily, but here's what you need to know. All right. And first of all, too, let's illustrate this. It should be a little disconcerting when you look at Andrew Tate's popularity and him being one of the most Googled people on the internet, right? At one point. And it was around during that time, or maybe right before then, that he was canceled. And I've had friends of mine and people that I know who have been canceled. To some degree, I've been canceled, but I don't care. And what's happened with being canceled is that private corporations decided to censor this man and his organization and remove them from platforms, remove them from paying things that they, like email lists and services and bank accounts even. I mean, it's pretty dangerous, if you ask me, that because if a corporation or company doesn't like what you say, that they can, censor and cancel you like that. And it should be disconcerting to all of you if that's something that can happen. And here in the United States, we had principles of freedom, and we used to protect against free speech. And we've stopped doing that. There's a lot of people who have the comforts of the United States and the country we've built here who don't understand the principles that we're built on. And they don't understand or agree that this is a dangerous thing. And that's very problematic. I mean, it's very problematic when I went to places in Eastern Europe to train their militaries, that those soldiers in places like Poland and other places in Eastern Europe, those soldiers were more American than a lot of the people who are actually in America as far as principles are concerned. So there's a lot of things that should be disconcerting about this. Now, is there a cabal of people, running the show behind the scene? Not necessarily, but I don't think that's a true thing. I think the genius, though, of having the Matrix, right? It kind of spins off of the red pill thing, right? Not that, that's in just having that whole idea of, using that movie. That movie's a good analogy for a lot of things, right? The whole idea behind this, Matrix is really a genius one, which is where, those guys are genius marketers and I am not. Sadly. Okay. I've been talking about programming in my programs for a long time. and deprogramming yourself from societal programming and finding your own way, really, in your own identity, right? And your own wants, needs, goals, and stuff like that. I've been talking about that for a while, but by personifying that concept into something called the matrix and making it this personification, like, is pretty genius. And like the fact that I use words like personify, I've just lost 80% of my audience, right? Like most people, unfortunately, are not, real intelligent when they look at this stuff, and you have to, talk to them at a level that sometimes I'm just not equipped, right, to have those conversations. I don't know how to resonate sometimes with certain people who, don't want to put a lot of thought into things. I mainly work with people who are determined to help themselves. You know what I mean? And so it's so it's hard when I'm talking to the masses and they're really just sort of more or less cattle, you know what I mean, and their behaviors. It's like I have a hard time relating, right, because I'm somebody who's been very determined most of my life to achieve things, right? But at any rate, is it a BS concept though? Right? It's really not though. It's really not. It's not some cabal of people behind the scenes running the show like that, like in an organized fashion. But this has been going on for a long time. And countercultures, for generations, have been fighting against, a small number of wealthy, determined individuals who are looking to control masses of people, right? And that's been going on for a while. It's been going on since before the internet. It's just nowadays, it shows up a little differently than it did before, and that's the only thing. And it's not this intentional thing. It's actually mostly chaos. And all this chaos, I mean, what does it amount to? It's self-interest. And so here's the sort of neurobiological perspective here, right? Is that you guys began your lives as children with brains that were not yet fully mature, and you relied on your parents, and you relied on your social influence and family influence and cultural influence to tell you how to behave, how to act, what values you should have, what's important, what's not, right? And you grew up developing a sense of value based on what other people told you. And that includes, what the right prescription is for having a happy life, a good life, being what would be considered success. But the problem with that is that prescription that you were given was generally coming from a place of self-interest from those delivering that message. And that could show up simply as unaware parents trying to teach you the right way, but having bad ideas. You know what I mean? Their self-interest is in that they don't want to be bad parents and that they see the world a certain way. And if we try to see the world differently than how they see them, then that violates their ego, right? Their safe world theory and their sense of self. And so people get very upset when you violate their sense of self. And so they, and their sense of self is based on their ideas of how they think the world works. And they want to impose those ideas on you. It's self-serving. It's not something that is motivated by necessarily benevolence, even if they think they are. And then that translates to things like advertising, right? And things like marketing and stuff like that, where you're being marketed to in a way that helps you, formulates your beliefs and your ways of seeing the world. And a lot of people follow a prescription that's been laid out by somebody else. And then they turn around at some point in their adult life and they realize that everything I've been doing is bullshit. And this is, I've actually been, especially as men, I've actually been following a prescription that kind of enslaves me to a system and enslaves me to, mediocrity and keeps me laboring for somebody else's interest, right? And that's been around for a while, this concept. It's just people are self-interested, and you develop a company with products and services and things, and that company wants to grow, that wants market share. It's going to advertise. It's going to advertise in such a way where it's going to be self-interested before it benefits you. It's not that it never benefits you. It's just that the interest isn't your benefit entirely, right? And so what you have to do, and I teach this in my year-long seduction mastermind program, and it's very important in terms of having frame. If you want frame in your relationships, you start with frame with yourself and being on your own identity and point of origin and knowing who you are and what you want, where you're going. But much of that has just been influenced by outside sources. And so what you need to do for you is you need to unplug from those influences, to use that term, and you need to find out who you are, find out what motivates you, find out what is going to make you happy. Now, a lot of people have used this terminology, have said these things, and have had groups to say that I have the answer. You know, the Tates have the war room, right? That's their answer. And that's fine. You know, those answers, it's really usually you're following somebody else's prescription, somebody else's view of the world. Not entirely bad if you agree and co-sign to that view. You know, if that's going to help you and you are aware and you're agreeing and co-signing with that worldview and that prescription, have at it, right? But at some point, even if you are following somebody else's prescription, which isn't all bad, by the way. I mean, that is what mentorship is. Like, you know, when you mentor with somebody, not just like getting coaching or therapy or something, but actually like mentoring, right? If you're mentoring with somebody, you're picking someone who you admire, who has results and similar values to you, and you're allowing that person to essentially program you. You know, you're receiving that mentor's programming so that you can become better. So it's not necessarily bad, but you know, it's better to jump on someone else's programming by choice rather than having it be unconscious. And for most people, you know, 90% of everyone out there, it's an unconscious thing, right? And so you need to decide for you what it is that drives you. You need to find out your identity. And most of you guys, y'all think you have your identity, but you don't. Think of this question when we get off of this stream, which will be very, very soon. Who am I? Right? And how am I separate? Well, who am I? And think of that question separate from your influences. Most of you won't be able to do it, at least not right away. If you want frame in your life and you want success by your definition, your terms, not my terms, not the Tate brothers terms, not, you know, some red pill guy's terms or some, you know, some coach somewhere's terms or some politician's terms, but you want to have, you know, success, happiness, and things that you want in life. You want to have those things on your terms, right? Then you have, and you want to have your frame, and you want to have your life and be in charge of your own life. That's what you have to do if you want to lead your relationships, if you want to raise your family, if you want to do things the right, you know, in a way that is going to be fulfilling and getting you what you want. You have to know who you are. And it's not an easy question to answer. So that's my assignment for you, is to do some discovery, figure that out. And if you think you know and you know right away, I challenge that. Right now, link in the description. I'm taking a handful of people in my year-long program. It's a seduction mastermind program. It takes a year to really develop the skills. They come effortlessly, but you need some direction and some coaching and some action, right? But a part of that also involves your inner game and getting your inner game to a higher level so that you can unplug from fulfilling everybody else's dreams and obligations and really start fulfilling your own. All right. So, is there truth in the matrix? Well, it's a great analogy for something that is true, which is that most people are not leading their own lives. And so, what I suggest is that you start leading yours. You can do that through me and my help, or through the help of someone else, or try your best on your own. But I recommend that that is what you do. And that's going to be the key to having success, not just in your own life and by on your own terms, but in your relationships as well, especially if you're a man. If you expect to have a woman or women that trust you and have desire for you, right, and want to be with you, you have to know who you are and where you're going. Thanks again for tuning in. Well, it looks like I have a super chat, so I'm going to take this right away. Notice how people who are part of or benefit the powers that be are rarely investigated or punished when they suspected of wrongdoing. Example, Hillary Hunter, or the corrupt FBI directors. Yeah, no, I know, right? And that's why, like, when that's why, like I said, as far as those allegations, I mean, I'm the first person to come out against any kind of abuse on women, like, really. And I've talked about that on my channel. I've talked about, I'm even very careful when it comes to the statutory rape issue, which a lot of coaches in the manosphere and other places are not as tuned into that, right? Like, I don't recommend that adult males go under 21 with dating, and sex, for example. And there's reasons I have that. I've talked about it in other things. So I'm very, very hyper aware of, having dudes not become a abuser of women in any sense, right? And I'm not going to placate to women and placate to feminism and all the BS and the counter narratives that are out there. I understand that abuse does happen on both sides, but I coach men, and when I coach you guys, I want you guys to have, with the skills I teach my guys, they have a lot of power in those skills, and I don't want anybody using those powers, to harm others, and that especially women that they're with. So I'm against abusing women. Like, that should be obvious, but that's like, I'm very vocal about what that constitutes, and I take it a little further than most. And I'm saying here that I'm not they've been in jail for what, 6 months, or not? They had house arrest, jail. It's been going on for months and months and months. Where's all this evidence? Right? I see, women who have agency, who made conscious decisions to go be a part of the resources that they had, and to try to make their own resources, and to try to get their bag and get what they want. I see a lot of self-interest from anybody that would be an accuser, but I don't see this evidence of this trafficking, this abuse, all of this stuff. If they got it and it comes out, I'm the first person to say that that's not good, and I'm the first person to be against that. But I've been waiting to see that, and it hasn't come out. It hasn't. It should be all over. This is such a case that is, a public thing, that it should be all over the media, of women in cages getting beat up or all kinds of stuff, right? Women in non-consensual circumstances being trafficked around. That's what we should see in video and in all kinds of stuff all over the media, which is definitely determined to take those guys down. We don't see any of that stuff, do we? I haven't seen it. So, so there is, so what's going on? I mean, there's people with more money, more power, that have interests here in taking those guys down because they don't like their messages, and yet the evidence isn't there. So yeah, privilege is a thing, and the right people, and you have the right privilege. people are getting away with stuff that they shouldn't. Look at Epstein's Island and all the shit that happened there. We still don't have names for that, right? So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I'm no apologist. I'm no freaking whatever. Like, I take people as I see them. And right now, I don't see anything like that. And I have friends of mine who swear, these guys have great character. So I'm going to follow, the people that I know personally, who I trust. I'm going to go with that versus a counter narrative with no evidence. But again, it should be something that you should be very concerned about, that people could be censored like this, and that people could have allegations put up against them, and people could be held without process. Now, that is, of course, in Romania. And we could go down the list of bad decisions maybe that those guys made to put themselves there, whatever. But it seems to be a semi consolidated effort through multiple sources to try to, bring problems for these guys, right? And that should be concerning to all of you guys. And that should be something that we would want to fight against, right? Because I don't know about you, but I like having my freedoms. I like having my freedoms of speech and my freedom of expression and the freedom to live the way that I want to live. So hopefully you guys are interested in protecting that aspect of yourselves too. Whether you like these guys or don't like these guys, I don't fucking care, right? But you should be interested in protecting yourself and your freedoms. That we should be able to get on the same page with that. It's not like we're dealing with like some sort of terrorist organization leaders or ISIS leaders or something like that. We're dealing with guys who have an opinion that some people don't like and say it on the internet, right? And sell courses, like, and that's the deal. So that should be of concern. All right. That's as far as I'm going to go as talking about other people. It's not a big thing to talk about them. It was really just talk about the concept. And really, like I said, you guys really need to understand that concept of unplugging for yourself, and understand that concept of finding yourself, finding your identity, finding it independent of what other people are saying you need to do. And that includes me, and that includes anybody else. Right? I'm just here to help. I help guys do that. And I'm here to help you do that if you need that help. And I'm here to get you what you want, get you to your goals through mental fitness, inner game, right? Mindset correction. And of course, having frame in your life and with your relationships and seduction and all that stuff with your relationships. I'm here to help you with specific skill sets to get you what you want, but you need to figure out what that is. And that's only something that you can answer. And that only happens when you're able to unplug, deprogram yourself from what everybody else told you, and start running your own programming. Take care. Thanks again.